The holidays are right around the corner. Let's make a traditional German chocolate cake with the coconut pecan icing. First, you want to measure out 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Yes, you can use cake flour if you don't want to use all-purpose flour, but we're going to sift it anyway. So that's 2.5 cups into our sifter, plus 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And you're going to give that a sift in a separate bowl and set that to the side. Now in a saucepan, you want 1 bar of the Baker's German sweet chocolate. I believe it's a 4-ounce bar. Break it up and put it directly into your saucepan and add a half a cup of water to that, as well as 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And we're going to melt that on the stove over a low heat. Next, you want to separate 4 eggs. We need the yolks and the whites, but we need them separated. So, and make sure these eggs are also at room temperature. I didn't say that before, but yeah, everything that's normally refrigerated for this cake should be at room temperature. So this is going to be our 4 eggs separated, 4 egg yolks, 4 egg whites, and here's our chocolate all melted. And then we're going to go into our mixer bowl, 2 sticks of softened butter. Room temperature butter. I am using salted butter, but you can use unsalted, whatever your preference is. And to that, you're going to add 2 cups of sugar. And we want to whip this on a medium speed until light and fluffy. Once we get our sugar and butter where we want it, we're going to start to slowly add in our egg yolks one at a time. And then I also add 1 whole egg. So 4 egg yolks plus 1 whole egg. Once we get that in, we want to slowly drizzle in our melted chocolate. When you melt your chocolate on the stove top, only heat it on a low heat just until melted. Don't let it come to a boil. That way, when it's time to add it to the batter, it's cooled. It won't take long to cool if you just melt it on a low heat and not allow it to boil. So now that all of the chocolate is in, we're going to pour ourselves 1 cup of room temperature buttermilk, and we're going to alternate this buttermilk with our flour mixture. We want to start with the flour and end with the flour. So I'll put in some flour now. Now I'll drizzle in some buttermilk, and then I'll follow that up with some more flour, and so on and so forth. You just want to start with the flour and end with the flour. All right. And be sure to just keep scraping your bowl, paying particular attention to the bottom of the bowl, and make sure everything is getting well incorporated, okay? Now that that's done, we want to go ahead and whip up our reserved egg whites until they form peaks. And once you get it to that stage, we want to gently fold these egg whites into this batter. And I emphasize gently. This is going to help get a nice rise out of our cake. So we're going to be baking our cake layers in 3 8-inch pans, but I'm going to be splitting each layer and making 6 layers. So I need a little bit of height on my cake to be able to pull that off. Gently fold until you don't see any more egg whites in the batter, but take your time because you do not want to deflate your egg whites. And once that's done, we're going to what am I trying to say? We're going to divide the batter up evenly into our prepared pans. My pans have just been sprayed with pan baking spray. And I want to even it out. What I don't want to do is tap these on a counter because I don't want to deflate the batter after we went through all the trouble of whipping those egg whites. So I will make sure it's even, but I won't tap them on the counter. They baked in a preheated oven. I preheated my oven to 350 degrees, And then I put my cake layers in and drop the temperature down to 325, and they bake for 35 minutes. I let them cool in the pan for 10 minutes and I flipped them out, and I wrapped each cake in plastic wrap as soon as I flipped them out of the pans, and then I let them completely cool on the counter for another 30 minutes, and then I put them in the refrigerator while I made my coconut pecan icing. And speaking of the coconut pecan icing, I will be doing that video. That will be in a separate video. You're going to want to watch that because I have a very special recipe for that as well. So now that our layers are cooled and we have our coconut pecan icing made, we're going to assemble this cake. And as I had stated before, we're going to split each layer in half so we can create 6 layers. Of course, this step is optional. You could just put the cake together with just the 3 layers and it would be fine. But I love a good icing to cake ratio, and I try to get it as even as possible because I love this icing. This coconut pecan icing is one of my favorite icings ever. I could just eat it with a spoon, and splitting the layers helps me to get more of this yummy icing in the cake. So that is the reason why I do that. But again, you don't have to. It is optional. Let me just talk about too. I am using the icing while it is room temperature. Just let me say that. So I am using room temperature icing on chilled cakes. They're not frozen, but they have been chilled in the refrigerator. And as I split my layers, I also want to say how the way I was taught to do this was to move the cake and not the knife as much. You want to move, kind of keep the knife in the same spot, but move the cake to get an even cut. That's how I was always taught to do that. So having a turntable helps with that. So now that we have all of our layers split and filled, this is a very important part. I'm going to take 1 cup of chopped pecans. I'm going to chop them some more. And I'm going to toast these in that pan. I'm also going to add 1 cup of some more of the coconut flakes to this pan. And I'm just going to lightly toast these over a medium heat. And then I'm going to add them to the rest of the coconut pecan icing. And that's my trick for getting an icing that will stick to the sides of the cake, is I actually add more coconuts and pecans to it that have been toasted to the remaining icing, and this will stick to your cake. It won't slide off like the initial icing. So you don't want it to be thick in between the layers, but you do want it to hold up on the sides of the cake, and then you just got to take your time with it. So I'm actually pressing it into the cake and then smoothing it. So I'll scoop some up on my spatula, and then I will press it into the side of the cake and smooth it. See how that? And I do start with the sides of the cake and just work my way up to the top. But yep, you just got to be patient with it. But it's thick enough that it won't slide off the cake. That was the purpose of adding some more coconut and some more pecans to it, and then toasting it just gives it another depth of flavor. And it's real easy to do. You just got to take your time with it. Having this offset spatula really does help, but if you don't have one, you can still do it. I've done it without one. You know, it works. So just take your time. Make sure you just take the icing, press it into the side of the cake, and then just smooth it. Press and smooth, and just take your time with it, and it will stay, and it holds up. I've never had it slide off when I do it this way. So I've had a lot of people ask me about that. How do you get the icing to stay on the side of the cake? Well, this is how. This is how I've always done it. I hope that helps. But this is a traditional cake. This is what we call a real labor of love. There's so many steps to this cake. I only would make it certain times of the year because it is a real labor of love. Now keep in mind, as I stated before, I do have a video for the coconut pecan icing, and that will be in a separate video. That video will be available on all of my platforms, including my YouTube channel, The Chef and the Baker RVA. So, how many people make German chocolate cake? How many people have made a 6-layer German chocolate cake? This is one of those special occasion cakes, but you will love it. I promise you that. If you love German chocolate cake, please give this recipe a try. I am Mama Safana of Mama Safana's Buttercream Dreams and The Chef and the Baker RVA on YouTube. Thanks for watching my channel. I hope you try this recipe, and happy baking.